Top 5 enticing coaching candidates. This, I have to make a confession. I have to give Emery some credit here, and I think this is funny, and this is the only reason I'm telling you the story, is that the initial title was Top 5 Hot Coaching Candidates, and Emery thought it sounded like maybe I was going to do a fashion show or like a...
Who would be those?
Yeah.
Top 5 most eligible bachelors in college football.
Dan Lanning. Look at, I don't know. He seems to be.
Yeah, but with him, you got to keep one eye open, man. That guy's nuts.
Yeah, he is a little bit. Number 5, Jonathan Smith at Oregon State. Again, he is at his alma mater, but I do think that somebody is going to come and make a play for him and say, look, this is a much more certain future than you have. He's an excellent coach. And part of the thing was inspired by Jake Dickert, who could have been on the list, but right now he's not. But Jonathan Smith, I'm just very curious what happens with him. Now, people have left their alma maters before. He's there. I think he would want to stay there forever. But given their uncertain future, somebody can come and offer him a really good gig. And he's a young and up-and-coming coach. They're good on defense. They're good on offense. He seems to have nice balance. It seems to kind of know what he's doing. To me, somebody needs to at least kick the tires on him if they have an opening, especially at a Power 5 job.
Yeah, Brando had very high praise there for the Beavers and what they've got going on. And, they've got a really good football team that's got plenty of opportunities to make a lot more noise the rest of this way. But, I think if you have a head coach opening right now that's a Power 5 job and you're looking for somebody to, come and, take you to the next phase of your program. I mean, you logically are going to look at this guy and at least kick the tires a little bit on him. And you may not bring him in for an interview when all is said and done, or he may not have interest, but you're definitely at least looking into the possibilities there. And I've just been very impressed with, how good that team is all around, especially at home, play some nasty defense. DJU, was this big not a problem child and he got in trouble and things, but, Clemson just we don't know, man.
Conundrum.
Yeah, it's a conundrum. And, here he goes off to Corvallis and working pretty well. I don't know, working pretty well. I love Damian Martinez. I think he's a great back, and Isaiah Ball. I mean, they got a lot of great players. So he's a guy you at least kick the tires on.
Yeah. Number 4, Jason Candle at Toledo. Really surprised he didn't get a job last year. He's got the Rockets at 6-1 and first overall in the MAC right now, and. We're in the West in the MAC, but they're probably going to haul off and win that thing. And he's someone that, if I'm Michigan State, I'm thinking about this dude. He's got an excellent offense. When the offense isn't working, he's played great defense as well. The only loss in the season is at Illinois in week 1, 30-28. He's a guy who's on the way up. And, it doesn't just have to be a Big Ten school, but he's right there in the Midwest. And certainly his recruiting base is the same, although he can't get as many kids as a Michigan State could. But this would actually, if I'm Michigan State, be my number 1 guy, would be Jason Candle. As far as, and that's the only big job that's open, and the only job that really is open right now.
For now.
It's Michigan State. And so maybe they could jump on this pretty quickly. And while their, alumni might want a bigger name than that, I think you got to look at results, and Jason Candle is certainly a young up-and-coming coach who can do some things.
Yeah, I need to correct one thing. I said Isaiah Bolden. Silas Bolden is who I was referring to for Oregon State amongst their bevy of playmakers, but I want to make sure I get that right. Isaiah Bolden, somebody else entirely. So Silas Bolden is also a bit of fun. But, he's a guy that I think you've had on some previous lists. I think maybe when the Michigan State job first opened up, that was somebody that you mentioned. And so, he's certainly in that pool of guys. I won't pretend to know a ton about him, but everything I've read or heard or listened to has been very positive about the upward trajectory and the possibilities of, him being a great candidate for Sparty or perhaps for any other bigger jobs that open up.
I thought he was going to get the USF job.
That's maybe when you're talking about it.
Based on how much you have a man crush on him, would he be a part of the top 5 hot coaching candidates?
Jason Candle, look, you
mentioned him. He's 60-33. He played at Mount Union, so he knows how to win.
Yeah.
And then coached there for a little bit, too, for about 5 or 6 years, so he's got a little bit of that in him.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe that's what I'm doing here, and I don't even realize it.
Yeah, maybe.
Number 3, Charles Huff at Marshall. he gets talked about a lot. Like when you read articles or you hear people talking about coaching circles, and what, who the next wave is. He had that big win over Notre Dame. And Marshall's been pretty consistent. While they're not, I don't think a team that people think of quite often. They're 4-2 right now. They're on a 2-game losing streak, but one of those losses was to NC State only by a touchdown, and they lost to Georgia State last week. They've got James Madison this week, which should be super interesting since James Madison is really, really good. But I do think, if I'm Boston College there on the East Coast, which I think is about to come open, you could do a lot worse than Charles Huff and someone who's kind of exciting and innovative. I really do think that Charles Huff at Marshall is going to get some play here in the coming weeks, because I do think we're at that point where some of those jobs are going to start opening up. It might not be a year like it was a couple years ago where every job that was open was huge, unless there's like catastrophic things that go on or people go to the NFL or something like that. But there will be some interesting jobs opening up. There's some Power 5 jobs. I think Boston College is the next one, and I do think they need to look at Charles Huff.
Yeah, I mean, there's, if Lincoln Riley decides like, oh, I'm going to go coach the Panthers or something, then that could definitely shake some things up. But I mean, I know it's not the Bible by any means or the definitive guide to coaching hot seats, even though it's coach's hot seat. But that's something to just take a glance at. And like, dude, it's such a vanilla market that like the number 2 best job that could be, they have Jimbo on top of the rankings. It's like he's not getting fired right now though. Aranda's like 5 or 6. He's not getting fired right now. Mm-hmm. A lot of the others they aren't, like Napier's on there. He's not getting fired right now.
No, and look, they're 5-2. Yeah, he's not getting fired this year.
I don't know how often that's even updated anymore, but I know that it was a fun place to go at times, and I still do. But yeah, it just goes to show you that there's just not like there's not even 5 quality jobs for all these guys to go to right now. Yeah. So it's going to be fascinating to see how some of these do open up, like a Riley, or somebody else going to the NFL. But yeah, Charles Huff, I mean, certainly probably best known widely for that Notre Dame win, I would think, still at this point. Mm-hmm. But yeah, good coach and somebody who you definitely hear a lot about when the speculation starts. It's not, let's start off at the top and go down, but when you're talking about who are guys that can make leaps, then yeah, he's certainly somebody in that mix.
I think there need to be more Kalen DeBoer, Lance Leipold type hires as well.
Sure.
Where you're
I don't want retreads.
Yeah, where you're not necessarily just going, okay, who's the defensive coordinator at
Ohio State?
At Ohio State, like that's Jim Knowles. I mean,
you didn't mention the defensive coordinator at USC. He might need a job.
No, yeah. Well,
do y'all even realize that Cliff Kingsbury's on that staff until you see him on the sidelines? Is that like register with y'all?
No,
with USC.
Yeah.
I completely forgot that.
See, I mean, I saw him the other night, and I was like, oh yeah, he plays on the staff now. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
that's awkward.
Yeah, probably. I mean, not that he's not working hard, but working a lot less hard than he was.
Well, yeah, Riley was consulting with him on the sideline, but he didn't have the headset or anything because it's not his gig. But I was like, oh yeah, I forgot.
So he's an analyst.
Yeah.
Unlike when Gary Patterson had headsets on when he was.
No.
I mean, I don't know how all that works. To be honest with you, I don't think that was supposed to happen though. But Gary's always by the rules, right? That must have been a slip up.
He was just listening to his own. He was just listening to his own music.
He is the high road.
Yeah. Number 2, Manny Diaz, and look, like they've been down the road with Manny Diaz head coaching spots a couple times before, but. He's he's the best defensive coordinator consistently in the country when he is a defensive coordinator. So he's been at Texas, he's been at he's now at Penn State. He was the head coach at Miami, and they didn't give him a long time at Miami. And it was when Mario Cristobal, basically said, yes, I would come back there. They ushered Manny out the door before he really even got to get his sea legs. He's going to be a head coach again somewhere. I think he'll figure it out. But his defense is so good at Penn State right now. To me, there's no way he's not a head coach come this offseason.
Yeah, just for clarification on Cliff, he is a senior offensive analyst, but he's also quarterbacks coach.
There
so he is a part of the.
If he's one of the 10,
I just don't even think about it because of Lincoln being there, But it was just interesting to see them on the sideline the other night. But yeah, Manny Diaz, like you said, Penn State's playing some superb ball on that side of the coin. His coaching record kind of iffy, but you got to give guys opportunities, and sometimes they grow as coaches, and maybe he's one of those guys that's going to do that with another opportunity. So yeah, I think that's somebody that didn't work out well at Miami or what you wanted it to be, but that doesn't mean that he's not capable of doing something somewhere else at some point in time for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you had told Bill Belichick he wasn't going to be a head coach again,
exactly,
after the first try, I mean, it's sometimes I think that's kind of a silly thing. Number 1, Mike Elko. look, Duke is not only are they good, like this isn't a Duke team that is just like good by Duke standards. This is a really good team. And the way they play is so ridiculously fundamentally sound that anyone would be crazy not to call Mike Elko for their head coaching position. Because
where did he used to coach before then?
he was at A&M as the defensive coordinator.
Yep.
And
oh, shoot. There you go.
Yeah.
and so
and that's actually the ball they need to probably be playing, actually, in College Station to some extent.
Outside of some name that we're not thinking of that can come in there and keep that recruiting the same and tweak some things that Jimbo's not doing, I don't know. But Mike Elko, his brand of ball travels. I also think that, you will say he's at Duke for 7-8 years. This is where he wants to be. You will see versions of Duke schematically that are different based on who's coming in. He has found the schemes on both sides of the ball that work so well for what he has because, again, they're playing FSU this week. He does not have the athletes that FSU has. But I promise you, FSU's going to have a hard damn time with that team because they're not going to jump off sides. They're not going to have false starts. They're going to punch you in the mouth. They're not going to get called for holding a bunch because they know what they're doing. And that type of ball is good in any league, anywhere. You can win most of your games if you don't beat yourself. And Duke does not do that. And that's what Mike Elko is really good at. Not to mention he's a bit of a defensive genius.
I'm not entertaining really the idea of Jimbo being out after this year, and I think I want to go back to what I said earlier. All he's got to do is beat Texas next year, and everybody's going to be.
Oh, that's it's fine.
But then lose to Texas, and that buyout money will appear real quick. But that's a long time away. So, if we get closer to that situation actually being more realistic, then I haven't really given it much thought. But Elko seems like he would be a logical choice. I don't know how much he enjoyed his time in College Station. If that's somewhere he'd be like absolutely, but it doesn't get much bigger as far as blank checks and big facilities.
He would know where it all is.
Yeah, so I'm sure that would be enticing to some extent. Kind of a downer that. You can't just expect him to be at Duke for a decade and see what he does. Maybe he will be. Maybe he realizes, hey, I got a sweet spot here, and it's kind of unique, and that's good, and plays into my likes. I'm not sure, but yeah, he would be an obvious candidate for A&M or any other big job that opens up at this point based on what he's done with the Blue Devils.
Adam McDonald.